So we have a new superseding indictment in that Trump documents case. What that means is they've added an additional charge for Trump with regards to that, the document that he's on audio recording, waving around, that we were told had something to do with Iran military plans. They've now apparently found that document. They're now charging him in addition with holding on to that document. We also, though, and this is potentially even more significant, we have another Trump employee who was included and is now charged in this indictment as well. And you have some conversations with him. This relates to the potential obstruction in terms of Trump trying to hide exactly what he had from the government. This was considered so significant that even Fox News, in their coverage of this development, had to acknowledge that this was, a bad situation for Donald Trump. Let's take a listen to a little bit of what they had to say.
There's electronic evidence involved here, right? They're talking about deletion of digital evidence and et cetera. That's the kind of stuff that can be tracked. That's very black and white to a jury. So this day and age with the CSI effect, that kind of stuff goes over well. So they've gained some ground here in the case against Mr. Trump. It's not entirely duplicative of what they had. It is a superseding indictment, and it does, unfortunately for the president, add some, some substance.
Really quickly, you said the goal is to flip Carlos de Oliveira, to turn him into a witness against President Trump. There's been some suggestion that that's already been attempted. For months, they've been trying to get him to flip on President Trump, and that doesn't appear to have yet been accomplished.
Right. So this is the hammer, right? In any case like this, if you're trying to cajole a witness into coming over to your side, especially one that really seems to know the inner workings, your last card to play is what they've done, which is indict him.
This is the hammer, that lawyer says, in terms of trying to get a Trump employee to flip. We have some additional news this morning that we may have another Trump employee who has already flipped. But before we get to that, let me give you some of the additional details about what's in the superseding indictment. We can put this up on the screen. So with regard to this new Trump employee, de Oliveira, who has been charged, they say here they've got some electronic communications of him speaking with another Trump employee, who they're just calling employee number 4. They say they left the area of the IT office together, walked through a basement tunnel. De Oliveira, who is the one who has been charged, took Trump employee 4 to a small room known as an audio closet. Once inside that closet, he told Trump employee 4 the following, that their conversation should remain between the two of them. Then De Oliveira asked Trump employee number 4 how many days the server retained security footage. Trump employee 4 responding, he believed it was approximately 45 days. De Oliveira told Trump employee 4 that, quote, the boss, that of course would be Trump, wanted the server deleted. Trump employee 4 responded he would not know how to do that and that he did not believe he would have the rights to do that. Trump employee 4 told De Oliveira that he would have to reach out to another employer who was a supervisor of security for Trump's business organization. De Oliveira then insisted to Trump employee 4 that, quote, the boss wanted the server deleted and asked, what are we going to do? So we have additional, pretty direct conversation here between these two Trump employees, one of whom is now charged, basically, alleging that they are involved in the cover-up and trying to delete some of the security footage. This came right after the government had been requesting this very security and surveillance footage, so doesn't look too good. And then the other piece this morning, Saagar, is that it looks like Trump employee number 4 may have flipped already, and that may be where some of this additional information that is coming in the superseding indictment came from. We've got a CNN report that Yuscil Taveras, a Mar-a-Lago employee who oversees the property surveillance cameras, received a target letter from federal prosecutors. So we got a letter from federal prosecutors saying, hey, you're a target of this investigation, but he hasn't been charged yet. And we know that he has been speaking with investigators. So when you put those two pieces together, that they said, hey, buddy, you are a target of this investigation, and he appears to be speaking and potentially cooperating with investigators, this employee may have already flipped on Trump.
Yeah, this is almost cartoonish in the way that it was described there. We literally were, when you were reading, Krystal, for those who are listening, that is directly from the indictment of the Department of Justice, also showing the penetration that they have into the Trump staff. I mean, I just think and continue to believe that it's very important for everybody to analyze these cases on their face. Some are silly, some are stretches of legal interpretation, not nearly enough standing. But on this one, I mean, mean, they have it so cold in terms of the timeline, in terms of the facts, in terms of the recordings, which we've all been able to take a listen to about I could have declassified it, I didn't declassify it. And then now in terms of the cover-up, which is why he's really in trouble in the first place. That ultimately is what I just keep coming back to, is that this is a problem literally of his own making, where he had some egomaniacal attachment to documents and calling them, quote, my documents regardless, Krystal, of classification status. And then whenever the government came and tried to get it back, they continued to obfuscate, to obstruct, and to try and to keep it away. And so this is not James Comey, this is not Mueller, this is not any number of, walls are closing in. It's just like basic presentation of the facts. There's a reason that Fox News is not airing any counter, theory to this.
Yeah.
And I actually, look, if people are interested, there's only one pushback to this entire thing. And that is Vivek Ramaswamy's theory of the case around the Presidential Records Act and the superseding of executive privilege and the DOJ. So if people want to go watch that, we had an interview with Vivek. Krystal and him went at it for 10 minutes or so. You can go and see. But that is pretty much it in terms of respected, I guess, theoretical legal way out of this particular case.
I think it's fair to say that there are people who would assert that may apply in this circumstance, and that may be kind of get out of jail free card for Trump. I would say it's a fairly novel legal interpretation that is certainly not held by the majority of legal analysts that I've heard. I haven't even heard the Trump team really making any sort of a significant defense on that front at this point. I really think Trump's plan is just he's got to get elected. He's got to get back in the White House in order to escape all of these charges, because every piece that's added looks increasingly more and more damning from him. Just to drill down on the other piece of this, so like I said, probably the most significant piece is you've got another Trump employee who is charged. You've got more communications that are, directly related to the alleged obstruction. But you also did have a 30-second count of willful retention of national defense information that was also added in the superseding indictment with regards to Trump. And this does have to do with that audio recording of Trump in his office talking. He's actually at Bedminster talking to a number of people saying, hey, I have this document. Look, take a look at this. Right. Waving, you hear the papers rustling in the background, and he says, I could have declassified this when I was president, but now I can't, which again sort of takes off the table one of the defenses that they had floated early. The reporting had been that this document had to do with military plans with regard to Iran, that it was highly top secret. The reporting had also suggested that the government hadn't been able to find this document as of yet. Well, now apparently they have the document, and they are charging him based on his willful retention of this document. And it's described in the indictment as a, quote, presentation concerning military activity in a foreign country that was marked top secret. And no foreign, what does that mean?
Yeah, no foreign. I remember this from our Discord. That means that you can't, the Discord leaks, that you can't share it with Five Eyes intelligence. So that's what right. No foreign means. Yeah.
Yes.
Those were coded in some of the documents that we reported on.
So anyway, that's an indication it's a very high level, extremely secret document that Trump was waving around and bragging about, apparently. Yeah. So that's what we know thus far in terms of this superseding indictment. And as I mentioned before, we do also have indications this morning that another Trump employee has flipped, and that's potentially where some of this new information is coming from. But just a reminder, I mean, this is far from the end of Trump's legal troubles. But this next piece up on the screen, we are certainly on indictment watch. This week, we thought indictments may actually have come down. Last week, you had the Jack Smith-related grand jury meeting last Thursday. They did not return an indictment on Thursday unless it's under seal, which is a possibility, but nothing that we know of. But this looks very much like it's coming to a close. The reason we know that is because Trump's lawyers actually met in D.C. with that team. That's usually an indication that things are wrapping up on that front. And it's sort of a last-ditch effort for them to be able to plead their case. You also have the grand jury down in Fulton County, Georgia, that also looks like they are wrapping up their work. Fani Willis has said that their investigation is complete. I am also aware that they have actually erected security barriers outside of the federal courthouse there in anticipation of whatever is going to happen on that front. So Trump's legal troubles certainly seem to be mounting in severity, complexity, all of the above. And Saagar, the piece of this that I really can't wrap my head around is on the documents case, this trial is set for May 24th, I think is the date. So May of next year. the timing is basically like the Republican nomination will probably be sewn up.
Oh,
right?
100%, yeah.
And so they will have, I think, limited options to get him out of being the nominee. And there's a very real possibility this man ends up in prison.
They're not going to drop him. First of all, that is certainly possible. He said, and he keeps laying the marker, I think intentionally, of I'm not dropping out regardless of what happens. If they convict me, if they throw me in prison, I'm still going to continue to run for president. Now, in terms of the GOP, they have no choice. I mean, if he gets popularly selected with this hanging over his head, it would be the most undemocratic thing in the world to try and replace him. And there's no actual process for that, Krystal.
Yeah,
that doesn't require some serious delegation chicanery. The only way is if he voluntarily drops out, which is just not going to happen. Based on everything that we know right now, based on his own statements, he says he's not going to drop. Maybe it's possible.
It's on the Democratic side, they have this what is a really undemocratic super delegate process. So if you had a similar situation unfold on the Democratic side, they might be able to pull some behind the scenes chicanery to oust whoever their dude was that ended up in prison or for whatever reason. On the Republican side, they don't have the same mechanism. And so, I think this all feels very theoretical to people, but there's a very real possibility that former President Trump is at least facing prison time going into a general election. And I don't know what that means in terms of the country. I don't know what that means in terms of how people are going to react. I have to think that it's going to be pretty difficult for Republicans to win a presidential election if the guy that they're behind is in prison. But it's just, it's pretty wild to contemplate how this is all going to unfold. And there's just no way you can predict how this is all going to play out.
Yeah, agreed.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.